Think of a time when radiation, once unknown and mysterious, was hailed as a miracle cure. A time when doctors and governments believed that bombarding human bodies with radioactive materials might unlock new treatments, perhaps for cancer, or for the unknown health threats of nuclear war. For decades, that hope drove a chain of secret experiments on thousands of ordinary people. Some were soldiers, others were hospital patients, prisoners, or marginalized individuals who never gave fully informed consent. This is the lesser-told side of the Cold War, not rockets and missiles, but labs, radiation, and human lives treated as expendable data. Today we look at that history, not to sensationalize horror, but to remember, learn, and draw lessons for ethics, medicine, and human dignity. After the nuclear bombs of 1945, governments and scientists faced a new reality. Radiation was powerful, but poorly understood. Amid fears of nuclear war and population exposure, many believed they needed data. Fast. In the United States, agencies like the Atomic Energy Commission, Departments of Defense, and research hospitals began sponsoring human experiments to chart the effects of radiation on living bodies. Between roughly 1944 and 1974, thousands of experiments exposed people, often patients, prisoners, or vulnerable individuals, to ionizing radiation, radioactive isotopes, or whole-body irradiation. In many cases, investigators did not inform subjects about the risks or withheld critical information about the long-term consequences. Because medical knowledge was incomplete and urgency high, radiation was sometimes promoted as a potential cure, or at least as a tool to understand how humans might withstand nuclear war, radiation fallout, or future exposure. That veneer of legitimacy helped normalize what would later become widely condemned practices. The variety of radiation experiments is shocking in their scope and brutality. Some involved injecting unsuspecting patients with radioactive elements such as plutonium, uranium, or polonium, simply to monitor how the body retained or eliminated these substances. Others were whole-body irradiation experiments. In one particularly infamous series from 1960 to 1971 at what is now University of Cincinnati Hospital, at least 88 patients, many suffering from advanced illnesses, were exposed to radiation, often without meaningful consent or therapeutic benefit. 1 in 4 reportedly died, many more suffered lasting harm. Some tests targeted vulnerable populations: prisoners, mentally disabled children, hospitalized patients, minorities, groups who had limited power to refuse or challenge medical authority. There was even a project, Project 4.1, launched after the 1954 nuclear test at Bikini Atoll, that studied residents exposed to radioactive fallout, essentially treating civilians as lab subjects to learn what high-dose radiation did to human bodies. In many cases, there was no real medical benefit or cure, just data gathering under the guise of science or national security. Looking back, the human radiation experiments of the Cold War reveal, honestly, some fundamental ethical failures. Many subjects weren't properly informed. Some may have consented under misinformation, and in so many cases the subjects belonged to marginalized groups: the poor, prisoners, the sick, people who just couldn't assert their rights or refuse participation. The degree of secrecy, well, it was extreme. Researchers classified their work, hidden under layers of government security, sometimes even bypassing hospital oversight altogether. The priority was data, not safety. The result: human suffering, radiation sickness, long-term illness, increased cancer risks, even premature death. In so many cases, patients and their families received no explanation, no compensation for damages, and even decades later, struggled to learn the truth. Once these experiments became public knowledge in the 1990s, there was, understandably, public outcry. A government effort under the administration of Bill Clinton aimed to catalogue and declassify many of these secret experiments. For historians, medical students, human rights advocates, survivalists, or honestly anyone who cares about human dignity, the legacy of these Cold War radiation experiments matters deeply. They show us how science, when it loses its ethical anchor, can become outright cruelty. They warn us against blind faith in so-called cures, national security, or scientific necessity. As a practical lesson, anytime you hear about medical research, especially if it involves radiation, experimental drugs, or any sort of exposure, demand transparency. If you work in medicine, public health, or scientific research, insist on informed consent, ethical review, oversight, and full disclosure. For societies as a whole, establish institutions that protect the vulnerable, the sick, the poor, minorities, against exploitation. Recognize just how easily power disparities can lead to abuse, especially when secrecy or emergencies are used to justify special measures. And for individuals, educate yourself. Know your rights. Question research. History shows us that trust, honestly, should never be blind. The Cold War's radiation experiments stand as, frankly, one of the most chilling chapters of medical history. They remind us that progress, or fear, can lead to tragedy when humanity is abandoned in the pursuit of data. They serve as stark warnings that scientific ambition must always be matched by moral responsibility, that vulnerable people deserve dignity, transparency, and protection, and that societies must hold power accountable, even in times of crisis. If this history matters to you, if you care about medicine, ethics, human rights, or simply about preserving memory, please subscribe for more deep, carefully researched explorations of history's hidden chapters. Share this with fellow historians, human rights defenders, medical professionals, or honestly anyone who needs to know, because forgetting makes repetition possible. Thank you for watching, and for remembering.